Well, hey everyone, and welcome to another biblical and theological FAQ devotional. This recording is being made on February 14th, which, if you didn't know, that is Valentine's Day. So, guys, if that's the first you are hearing about this, it's probably too late to get a reservation anywhere. Don't even try. And so what I would recommend is just run by the grocery store on the way home, pick up some spaghetti, make dinner, and pretend like that was your plan all along. But whatever your plan is for Valentine's Day, this holiday of love, we thought we'd take this opportunity to ask a question related to love and marriage that we often get asked, and that is this. Marriage is great now here on earth, but will we still be married in heaven? You know, when most of us took our wedding vows, we ended the vows by saying, "Till death do us part," or something to that extent. And so we understand that marriage is something that is for here on earth, but many people wonder, is that going to go on in heaven? Will we be married in heaven? Well, fortunately, God makes it pretty clear to us the answer to that question. Jesus was actually asked this question fairly specifically in the book of Matthew, chapter 22. So we have a direct response from Jesus about that very question. The setup for the question is some Sadducees, which is a religious group, came to Jesus and they posed this sort of story of a woman who'd been married multiple times on earth, and the question was, so she's been married multiple times, when she gets to heaven, who will her husband be? And Jesus gives a very profound response in Matthew 22, starting in verse 28. Jesus says this, "Well, you're in error because you don't know the scriptures." In verse 30, he said this, "At the resurrection, people will neither marry nor be given in marriage. They will be like the angels in heaven." And so look closely at Jesus' response here. First, he's describing the time of the resurrection. So this is after we've died, been resurrected. We're in heaven now. That's what he's talking about. So in heaven. And he says, there in heaven, we will neither marry nor be given in marriage. And so this whole institution of marriage will be no more in heaven. And instead, we're going to be like the angels, who we know are not, in fact, married. And so Jesus makes it pretty clear that when we get to heaven, that this institution of marriage will no longer be in effect like it is on earth. And the main reason why we know that is kind of a logical reason. If you look in the Bible, what's the purpose of marriage? You discover that there is no need for marriage in heaven like there is on earth. The Bible gives some pretty clear reasons why we have marriage on earth. The first is to teach us some spiritual lessons, to point us to God and to make us holy. But also on a practical level, marriage is there to provide companionship and help, as well as for the purpose of procreation, populating the world. Well, again, in heaven, we don't need these things because we won't need to be pointed to God. He'll be right in front of us. We won't need companionship or help. Everything will be perfect. And heaven is not populated the way earth is populated. It's populated by those who have put their faith in Jesus Christ. And so all the purposes for marriage will not be there. And so there's essentially no need for marriage in heaven. Now, maybe that sounds a little bit sad and depressing to you, but here are some good news for you on this Valentine's Day. The good news is, even though you won't be married like you are now in heaven, there will still be meaningful relationship in heaven. Here's what I mean by that. The fact is this: God is a relational being. He is inherently relational. We are created in His image, and so we are inherently relational. And so it only makes sense that relationships will obviously be going on in heaven, because that's part of who God is and part of who we are. And so that will still be very much a foundational part of heaven. And also understand this: heaven is not some foreign, weird place that will look totally bizarre to us. Heaven is a perfect recreation of earth. It will be like earth is now, but perfect. No sin, no brokenness. It will be a new heavens and a new earth. And so it will not be strange, and so it makes sense that relationships will be a part of that. And then also, all throughout the Bible, you see plenty of examples where people recognize their friends and their loved ones in heaven. And so, again, there's several examples throughout Scripture where people see beyond the veil into eternity, and they recognize people. So the Bible makes it clear that we will recognize and know people in heaven, and we're going to have relationships in heaven. So of course it makes sense. We're obviously going to know our loved ones, our spouse, our children, our friends. We'll know them, and we'll be in relationship with them in heaven. The relationship will just be different. But here's what we know about that: it won't be worse. It will only be better. Maybe you think, oh, that's so sad, we won't be married anymore. But the good news about heaven is everything is only better in heaven. It is never worse. And so, thinking about that, all this talk about heaven, let me just end by asking you to think about this. How confident are you about whether or not you're going to go to heaven? I hope you've wrestled with that question. And if you're not sure about that, let me encourage you to take Foundations. Go to rednotes.org and click on the Foundations and go through there and learn how you can have a relationship with God and make sure that you're going to go to heaven when you die.